Here is the most unsettling fact about Iran that nobody talks about in the news. Iran already has enough enriched uranium to build several nuclear warheads. Not one, several, and it still hasn't built a single one. Think about that for a second because it breaks every assumption you probably have about how dangerous countries behave. Most people assume the logic is simple. If a country can build a nuclear bomb, it will. That's the story we were told about North Korea, about Pakistan, about the Soviet Union. You get the material, you build the weapon, you point it at your enemies, and you call yourself untouchable. That's the game. Except Iran is playing an entirely different game, and it's winning. To understand why, you have to forget everything you think you know about nuclear deterrence. The conventional wisdom says the bomb is the destination. For Iran, the bomb is a trap, and the closer they get to it without actually crossing that line, the more power they extract from the entire situation. That is not an accident. That is a strategy, one of the most calculated and underappreciated strategies in modern geopolitics. Let's start with what Iran actually has. By the early 2020s, Iran had accumulated hundreds of kilograms of uranium enriched to 60% purity. Weapons-grade material requires 90%, but the jump from 60 to 90 is, technically speaking, a matter of weeks, not years. The International Atomic Energy Agency has confirmed this repeatedly, and American intelligence assessments have quietly acknowledged it too. Iran is not 10 years away from a bomb. Iran is not 5 years away. Under a full sprint scenario, Iran could be weeks away. And yet, nothing. This is the contradiction that should stop you cold. A country under crippling economic sanctions, isolated from the global financial system, with its citizens struggling under runaway inflation, has deliberately chosen not to build the one thing that could theoretically end all of that pressure overnight. North Korea built the bomb, and the world eventually stopped pushing so hard. Pakistan built the bomb and became too dangerous to truly punish. So why hasn't Iran? The answer is so counterintuitive, it almost sounds like a bluff, because not having the bomb is more powerful than having it. Stay with that idea because it is the entire architecture of Iranian foreign policy for the last 2 decades. Political scientists have a term for what Iran has become: a threshold state. A country that has mastered every technical step required to produce a nuclear weapon that sits permanently on the edge of that capability but never takes the final step. Israel is widely believed to have nuclear weapons and refuses to confirm or deny it. That's one version of nuclear ambiguity. Iran has constructed a different version. Everyone knows they could build it, nobody knows exactly when, and that uncertainty is the weapon itself. Think of it this way. If you are a military planner in Tel Aviv or Washington and you know Iran has a bomb, you can calculate your response. You can draw red lines. You can build a doctrine around a known threat. But if Iran might be 3 weeks from a bomb, or 3 months, or already secretly there, you cannot calculate anything with confidence. You are paralyzed by the unknown, and a paralyzed enemy is exactly what Iran wants. This is what strategists call ambiguity as deterrence. The fog is the weapon. Iran does not need to detonate anything. It just needs to make sure that everyone with the power to attack it wakes up every morning wondering whether today is the day Iran decides to sprint across that final line. That fear costs Iran nothing to maintain and costs its adversaries everything in planning, resources, and psychological pressure. But here is where the strategy gets even sharper. The moment Iran actually builds and tests a nuclear device, the ambiguity evaporates. The fog clears, and what replaces it is a completely different geopolitical reality, one that is far worse for Tehran than what they have now. A confirmed Iranian nuclear weapon would almost certainly trigger immediate military strikes from Israel, potentially with American support. It would solidify a coalition of Gulf states against Iran in ways that current tensions never quite have. It would hand Iran's enemies the clearest possible justification for the most severe response imaginable. Right now, attacking Iran carries enormous political and military risk. Attacking a confirmed nuclear state that just tested a weapon carries a different kind of risk, but it also carries a different kind of permission. So Iran sits at the edge, close enough to generate fear, far enough to deny the consequences. It is, in the coldest strategic terms, a nearly perfect position, and it has held for years. Now layer on top of this Iran's actual strategy for regional power, because the nuclear program does not exist in isolation. It exists as the backbone of an entire architecture of influence that runs through Lebanon, through Yemen, through Iraq, through Syria. Hezbollah fires rockets into northern Israel. The Houthis disrupt shipping lanes in the Red Sea. Militias in Iraq harass American bases. None of this requires Iran to fire a single missile from Iranian soil. None of this requires Iran to formally declare war on anyone. It is pressure applied through proxies, through plausible deniability, through what military analysts call asymmetric warfare, and the nuclear threshold sitting in the background makes all of it more credible, more frightening, and harder to respond to decisively. Here is the brutal elegance of the whole structure. Iran gets to be dangerous without being a target. It generates deterrence without detonation. It projects power across 5 countries without putting its own soldiers in the line of fire. And it maintains just enough nuclear ambiguity that any adversary thinking about a decisive strike has to ask themselves, what if we're wrong about how far along they really are? That question alone has bought Iran years of operational freedom. The Shah of Iran, the monarch who ruled before the Islamic Revolution of 1979, actually started the nuclear program, backed by American support, in the 1960s and 70s. The irony is almost unbearable. The United States helped build the very infrastructure that now sits at the center of its greatest regional security nightmare. After the revolution, the new Islamic Republic inherited the program, expanded it through decades of sanctions and sabotage and assassinations of nuclear scientists, and transformed it into something the Shah never imagined. Not a symbol of modernization, but a sword held permanently just above the scabbard. And that image is exactly right. The sword is more threatening when it is raised than when it has already fallen. Once it falls, the moment is over. While it hovers, that is where the power lives. So the next time you see a headline about Iran's nuclear program and you feel the familiar pull of alarm, ask yourself a different question. Not when will Iran build the bomb, but rather, why would Iran ever give up the power of almost having it? Because that almost is not a failure. It is not a delay. It is the entire point. Iran does not need nuclear weapons to be the most disruptive, most feared, most strategically complex actor in the Middle East. It just needs everyone to believe that the decision to build them is one it could make before breakfast, and hasn't yet. The world keeps waiting for Iran to cross the line. Iran keeps finding that the line itself is the most valuable piece of real estate on the map.